My name is Joy, and I have a CPS case, and Mr. Davis is my lawyer. I found him in the internet when I was searching because when my son got taken away by CPS, and every time I go to Mr. Davis, always make me feel better when I go home. He helped me a lot. Before I only have 2 hours visitation. Now they give me 3 times a week and 2 hours.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Attorney Vince Davis, and I'm joined by my guest host, Miss G. Miss G, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Doing fine. I like your lighting there that you have there. You have that bright light on you, and yet it's kind of dark in the back. That's excellent lighting.
Yeah, I learned from
Very
you.
nice. Very nice. So, I understand you have some questions for me this evening during my office hours.
Yeah.
So, go ahead
So,
and shoot.
okay, so my first question is I have a lot of questions. So, number one, what do you say to parents who just had their children taken, like, for example, today?
Stay calm. Try to relax. Tell me what happened. Don't talk to social workers without me present, on at least on the phone or in person.
Okay. Okay, question number two. What is the most heartbreaking first call you've ever received from a client?
Sometimes they're all heartbreaking when somebody calls me and tells me they've lost their child.
Mm-hmm.
You know, always heartbreaking. Especially if they're crying about and they're just uncontrollable sometimes. And sometimes it's just hard to get information from them because they're so distraught. Imagine losing your child. You know, um, right before the show started, I just spoke to a woman who just left the hospital. She just gave birth, and the social worker detained the child
Wow.
at birth. It was kind of interesting because the child didn't test positive for drugs or anything. It was based upon the fact that she had a case 2 years ago, and she didn't reunite with that child.
Mhm.
And so, based upon that, the social worker came in and said, well, we should detain this child. And I see that more and more these days. Next
It's true.
question.
Number three. Hold on. Why do so many parents freeze or say the wrong things when CPS first show up? And I hear that a lot. And they say, "Oh, I wish I didn't say that. I wish I didn't do that."
Because they're emotional. They're emotional. They're distraught. They're not thinking clearly.
Mhm.
The last thing on their mind is trying to win a legal case. They're trying to get their child back. And they believe that the social worker is going to work with them instead of against them. And, that's the wrong thing to believe. Social workers are highly trained, and a
Yes, they
lot of
are.
them play that good cop to get the information from you to use against you in the court.
Yeah,
They're trained to do it.
I know. Question number four, which I totally can understand from each call I get, the trauma and the process that parents face. So, my question to you is, why does the CPS process feel more like punishment than protection?
Because I think that sometimes I think sometimes that people treat parents the way they do because of punishment, and they call it protection of the child. But in essence, I believe it's really a source of punishment.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
That's
I
what
believe
you
that.
believe?
Hmm.
You don't believe that they're punishing the parents to get their bonuses, to be able to ensure their bonuses?
I believe that sometimes, not all the time, I believe that sometimes that they're punishing the parent for being in the situation they're in, and they're not really thinking about, eh, you know, thinking about safety of the child is really second or third on the agenda. It's not the primary concern.
Yeah, but I guess that's why when you said to, I feel like they're punishing the parents. Every parent is guilty to them. There is no due process. I just feel that from based on their actions, not just on feelings, based on their actions, they're not protecting the parents or the children. They're just after their own pocket. That's all I have to say about that. But we can move on to number 5. Can you explain what it is like for a parent walking into the first courtroom with no idea what's happening?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean?
I didn't understand the question.
Can you explain what it's like for the parent to walk into the first court room with no idea what's happening? The first
Mind
hearing,
blowing.
I guess.
Mind blowing. Most of the parents that when they walk into the courtroom, they've never been in a courtroom before. Never. And they walk in and they see all these people, mostly other attorneys, and there's the judge, sitting on the bench. There's the bailiff sitting over there in the corner. The clerk's there, the court reporter's there, all the attorneys sitting at the counsel table. They're probably wondering who all these attorneys are and who do they represent. Yeah, it's kind of mind blowing. I can
Can
only imagine.
can you explain um, to the parents on the first court hearing? I know that was not one of my questions I was going to ask, but on the first court hearing, since we're on this topic, um, what do you suggest for parents to do to be prepared? Because I've seen you win on the first court hearings. I've seen literally the kids go back home that day. So, what should you tell parents to prepare them for that day?
It really starts a few days before that first court hearing.
Mhm.
You know, um, I was having this conversation a couple days ago, and I told the parent, I said, you don't wait to the last minute to bring me in on the case,
Mhm.
because if you wait to the last minute, like the night before, there's not much preparation I can do for the case. And they asked me, well, what preparation do you have to do?
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, this person really doesn't understand what an attorney does. And I had somebody Google this because they didn't believe me. But for every hour an attorney's in court, the theory is that the attorney should spend about 3 hours in preparation. Most people think an attorney can just walk in and off the top of his or her head start talking, start arguing, and win the case. That's not true. The attorney's got to prepare.
Okay, so if they did not hire you, for example, on the first hearing, and they want to hire you after that because they didn't have time to hire you, what should the parents say that day in order for them to give them some time to hire you?
Well,
So,
when you go to the first hearing, you are entitled to a 1-day continuance. So occasionally people get there and they see what's going on, and it's like, oh my God, they call me while they're at court. Like, what should I do? I didn't realize it was this serious. And I said, well, you can ask for a 1-day continuance, and maybe I'd have to look at my calendar, but maybe I can be there tomorrow or the next business day. Like if it's on a Friday,
Right.
I can be there Monday. But that's what they can do. Or they just have to go through the first hearing with the court-appointed attorney and set the court date, for the next court date, which will be 4 to 6 weeks out, and I can be there on that day. I can take over the case in the interim.
Okay. Now, how do you help parents hold it together emotionally while fighting for their kids? I do my best. How do you, on your end, help parents hold it together?
It's hard. Every case is different. I do a lot of listening, without interrupting, and try to help them through this. And a lot of times, I recommend them to get into counseling, to see a counselor or a therapist. Because, bottom line, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. That's not my expertise. So sometimes, a lot of times people need this professional help just to deal with the trauma of losing your children, right? So sometimes the best thing I can do is refer them out to a counselor or an individual therapist.
Okay. We're gonna talk. I guess next thing I want to ask you is about the lies and the lies, the reports, and the system altogether. Okay. Have you seen CPS exaggerate or twist facts in court reports? How often does it happen in your case? Like when you go to court hearings and when you review reports or what have you, how often do you see that happening?
Well, according to my clients, I see it almost all the time.
Yeah. Good answer.
Don't forget, I'm not there when these events happen, right? And
Mhm.
neither is usually CPS. But usually the client's there, and the clients tell me ABC, social worker reports CDE or XYZ. And I can't tell you how many times clients would tell me, Mr. Davis, I didn't tell the social worker that.
Yep.
That's almost on every case.
Yep. 100% of the time, for God's sakes. Yep.
So, I see it a lot. Now, my job is to believe my client, not the social worker.
Yep.
So when my client tells me something, I take it at face value. And that's how I operate.
That's good.
I don't second guess my client.
Mm-hmm.
So
So the next question is important for me to hear as well. What do judges really believe? In your opinion, what do judges really believe when they read the CPS reports? What do you think goes in a judge's mind when they read the CPS reports? If they do read it, I doubt it, but if they do read it.
no, I think judges do read them,
Yeah.
especially in the last few years. There's a whole new breed of judges coming up.
Oh, brand new judges? I hope they're Republicans.
Whole new breed of judges.
Mm.
They're younger, from a different generation.
Mm.
Different generation than when I first started, 39 years ago.
Mm.
I've seen a changing of the guard.
Good.
And sometimes when I'm, doing a case or arguing a case, I can tell by the judge's questions or comments that they've actually read the report. Or when they're making a ruling, they'll say something, in the report or from the report, like on
Be a young judge. Must be a young
page
judge.
12, paragraph 3. And I think, oh my God, the judge read the report. So that doesn't mean that my client believes the report is accurate, but the judge has reviewed the report. So I think that, and I think by law, the judges in a lot of the cases are supposed to read and consider the social worker's report. I don't know if you realize that, Georgette. The law actually says that the judge must read and consider the social worker's report.
Oh my God. The law actually said, you know what?
The law actually says that.
That's why they're taking it to an extreme. That's why the social workers take it to an extreme to lie, because the judges do take their statement into consideration.
So, and if you want to challenge what the social worker says,
Mm.
you got to bring in your evidence. You got to bring in your witnesses to contradict what the social worker says. Because if you don't bring in the witnesses and you don't bring in the evidence, that's just leaving the judge to have to decide what the social worker wrote. Because
But
by
that's
law, the judge must read and consider what the social worker says.
right.
Did you know that?
I heard. I mean, I read that the judges do take the social worker's word into consideration. They state what they write into consideration.
But
However, they don't do their own checks and
but did you
balances.
know? Did you know that was the law?
I don't care what the law is. It's a stupid law, because you're putting the kids' lives and parents' lives in the hands of corrupt entities. Entities that work through the state. They're not even human. You understand that? They're not human.
What you're saying is giving the viewers a formula for failure.
No, that's not what I'm trying to give the viewers, especially parents. Look, I love what I do for you, and I love helping parents. I love helping families. I don't trust social workers. I don't trust them. To me, they're not human.
I didn't say you should trust social
Okay.
workers.
And I do believe that, yes, there is a law like that. But guess what, Vincent? I know we need to abolish these type of laws, because it's not helping parents or children. It's not helping them. It
Well,
really isn't.
I'm with you on changing the laws,
Mhm.
but what are we doing about it?
We're going to have to vote their buns out.
You're gonna have no. You're gonna have to organize people.
Oh, we
You're gonna have
talked.
to get voting blocks to change laws. That's what you're gonna have to do. And to be honest with you, I'm not doing that. You're not doing that, and I don't know anybody that is doing that. So we can come on the show and criticize all we want, but what are we doing to change it?
Okay.
You know, talk is cheap.
Okay. Um, what's the most shocking thing you've seen CPS do to the families?
I can't even begin to tell you. And and you never know the incentive or the reason why the agencies or the departments do what they do. Sometimes they do things and you think you know why, but you really don't. You really don't. And that's the most shocking thing, is because you think they're doing it because they're trying to keep kids safe. You think that they're doing it because of money, but sometimes they're doing it just for personal dislike or pleasure, discrimination
Yeah.
or prejudice
Yeah.
against a certain person for what that person was accused of, what that person, his race, or excuse me, or religion.
And
So
also they do it using the voting status as well too.
those are the most shocking things. Social workers are people, and in the general public, you have people that do things because of wrong reasons. So social workers are the same way. And I don't, you should expect social workers just to be like regular human beings. And you have to fight against that. If you go to court expecting the social worker to be fair and honest, you're going to be greatly disappointed.
Well, I expect them to do their damn job that we're paying them for, right? I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Well,
I
you're
mean,
going to be
it does
greatly
come out of our
disappointed.
money. Mm, I get it.
When you turn on the news, do you see public representatives doing their job that you pay for? No. Social workers are the same way. The question becomes, what are you going to do about it? You going to fight it? You going to get a lawyer and fight it? That becomes the question.
You also forgot to mention one thing, though. The social worker that was having an affair with a parent, and the wife hired you. You told us that story, and the mother hired a private investigator and followed them to the motel
No.
or
She
the
didn't hire a
hotel.
private investigator.
Oh, or she
She
would.
followed them to the motel
Mhm,
and with her phone recorded them coming out of the motel room.
mhm. That was the most shocking to me when I first heard it. Just so you know,
It
to me,
actually wasn't shocking to me.
well, to me,
It was surprising to me that she actually was able to record them, that she actually got the evidence.
well, we know how the system fails us, and you have a lot to say on how to beat the system. So that comes to our next question. Why do you think the system is so quick to remove children instead of supporting the families?
That's a very good question. I think it's money and fear. Money and fear.
What the hell are they fearing?
Kid's going to get hurt and they'll be blamed. They'll be sued.
That's hilarious. Okay, then. Hmm.
Nobody wants to be blamed if a kid is eventually hurt, in a situation.
I have seen a lot of stories on not just social media, all over the news, where social workers neglect abused children and they move on to the ones who are not being abused. You know what I mean? Kind of like they don't even use common sense. Obviously, it escapes them, but they don't focus on the kids who are really being harmed. That's why there's a lot of kids who die in the system. That's why there's a lot of kids who are being trafficked in the system, and they focus on the children that literally just did nothing, or they're living their teenage life. They make one mistake or whatever, and then go after them, and then they take all the other kids along with them. Um, to me, I feel like it's either they're sex trafficking the children or they're putting them in homes who are sex trafficking the children. Um, because there's so many children missing in CPS custody. And also, that was on Channel 7 News. I was surprised, on Channel 2 News as well, and Channel 5 and 11 and 13. So basically, what they're doing is, if any child runs away, which we had a whistleblower on my show that said that, the same thing, a foster parent, if a child she had runs away from the home, that she's not allowed to call the police. They can only call the social worker. And they cannot go look for the child. Oftentimes, if that child never came back to the foster home, it doesn't matter. Okay? So that's been going on. It's been exposed recently since Trump took office. A lot of stuff has been coming out in the open, stuff that I've been already talking about in the shows, and you've been talking about it in the shows for years. So it's been coming out more and more right now, just letting you know. Okay. But I do not, I mean, I just can't. I can't stand them. God bless you, Mr. Davis, really, for dealing with them.
Do you have any more questions for me?
Yes, I do, actually.
We're getting towards the end of the show for
What does
office
it
hours.
actually take to win a CPS case?
What does it take?
Yeah, what does it actually take to win a CPS case?
Organization, determination, good legal strategy.
Well, can you share a story with us that a parent turned it around when everyone thought that they'll lose the kids?
The one thought, what?
Can you tell us a story or share a story, a real story with us when everybody thought the parents are going to lose the children and they didn't? How did they turn it around?
You know, one of the best ways to turn around a case is to listen to your attorney. You know, a lot of times, especially when I take over cases, parents have their own strategy that they've developed. And 999 times out of 1,000, there's something wrong with that strategy. And the best way to correct that is to listen to your attorney, because your attorney is probably a little bit more trained and educated in the law and winning cases. So give up your own strategy and listen to your attorney. You know, I get calls all the time where people disagree with me, sometimes outright argue with me about how a case should be done. And I always wonder to myself, why are you calling me if you already know how to do the case? And people tell me, well, I just wanted to confirm that I was thinking of it the right way. And I said, well, unfortunately, you're not. And sometimes they get mad and hang up on me.
So why do some parents get their kids back in 6 months and others, takes years and years and years if they even get their kids back? Is that also part of the strategy that they think they know what they're doing and they're not listening? If, for example, to you, if you're their attorney?
Every case is different, Georgette. Every case. You know, there's so many factors that come into play about why some people get their kids back, why some people don't. You know, it could be the strategy, it could be the parent, it could be the nature of the allegations, it could be the social worker, it could be the judge, it could be a lot of different things. It could be a combination of things. You know, it just, every case is different. I can tell you, a lot of people ask me about cases like they're all the same. And they're not all the same. Every case is different.
Mhm. What kind of evidence or actions impresses the judges the most, in your opinion?
Credibility.
What's one example of a parent you thought might not take it, but did?
Take what?
Um, you know what? I didn't write the rest of that. I thought I did. What's one example of parent you thought might not? Oh, might not make it in the case because you're shocked that they made it because you thought they will not be good on the stand, for example, if they're too emotional or too hostile.
I once had a client who had admittedly had a serious drug problem. And I didn't think, I didn't think she would recover as fast as she did. And she made a miraculous turnaround.
And what helped her make that miraculous turnaround?
I don't know. It was all inside of her. I mean, I told her what she should do. She did it, though, herself.
Good. Now, I want to ask you another question. Once the case is closed, is life going to ever be the same for parents? Is there going to ever be peace and serenity away from CPS?
I say it's 50-50. A lot of parents are pursued, repeatedly by CPS because, they're in the CPS data bank. Once in that data bank, you might get a call, might, get a visit. You just never know.
Gotcha. How, in your opinion, how can parents heal and protect themselves from future CPS involvement? Because, they're always going to be targeted.
How can they protect themselves against CPS involvement?
how can parents heal and protect themselves from future CPS involvement?
Heal, probably counseling, protect themselves from future involvement, stay away from making calls to police when the police aren't needed.
Stop
You
getting
know,
into fights.
right. Stop the arguments with the spouse.
Yep.
Stop making false reports against the other parent. I can't tell you how many times allegedly someone has made a false report, gotten the family involved in CPS, and then everyone loses the children.
Yeah. And then they take it back. They think taking back their statement, right? Or their false claims is going to make everything all right.
Right. And then it's too late.
You open Pandora's box, like my mom used to say. Yeah.
And then sometimes the judge doesn't believe the recantation, but believes the false statement.
Oh, I just feel like they're all stupid, all of them. Judges and social workers and court appointed attorneys as well. So I guess tonight, Vincent, what's your message for the parents watching this who hasn't called yet but knows that they need help? What's your message to these parents tonight?
This is the most important case you'll ever be involved with.
Yeah.
It's regarding your children. This system can and will take your children away permanently. It's not a joke. And do not think they will do the fair or right thing. You have to make them do the fair and right thing.
Yeah.
That's my message. Georgette, I want to thank you for being my guest host tonight. I'm going to try to get up early tomorrow and do office hours tomorrow at the regular time, 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Sir.
Yes.
I have one more.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to hear it from you, and I want everyone, I already heard it from you before, but I want everyone else to hear it. Why do you keep doing this work day after day for families who feel like they have nothing left? Like, what gives you the motivation? Because I know you hardly sleep. You're like Donald Trump. You sleep like 3 hours, okay? But you're always working. You're constantly working, and you're answering people. I have clients and potential clients who tell me, Georgette, Attorney Davis responded to me at 4:30 in the morning, and they were shocked, right? We have clients who tell us that you email them, I mean, you text them on Saturdays, on Sundays, where other attorneys refuse to text on Saturdays, and they tell their client not to bother them on Saturdays. And but you do respond to them, and even if you can't respond, you would respond later that night or that evening or whatever, but you do respond to them. So what motivates you to do all that?
That's a good question. I think it's a complex answer, but I just enjoy what I do.
I think it's more than that. I think you felt that you being away from your mom for so long, it gave you that sense of feeling to help other parents, because you do know how it feels like being away from your mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what motivates you the most. Am I right?
You're probably right.
You don't talk about it much. You got emotional one time when you told me, but I think that's what motivates you the most from my observation.
You're probably correct. I hadn't thought about that. I don't know if I ever told you. A client who was a therapist told me about it.
You never told me
maybe
that.
that was like 6 or 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I had already been doing it over 30 years. Because I had gone to law school to be a tax attorney.
Yep. And you kind of did this later on, and I do believe that, because last time you talked to me about it, it was over the phone, and you became emotional, and you pretended you had a call coming, you like cleared your voice and like, okay, I gotta go. But that was years ago, and I figured, I was like, oh my God, he feels what it's like to be away from your own mother, because you told me you cried for your mom. You actually cried for her. You wanted her around. But I'm sorry to bring it up, but I just want everyone to know out there that there's a reason why attorneys like him do what they do. And other attorneys just do it for the fun and the little pay money that they get in their damn pockets. But you need an attorney who is competent, who has the passion, and an attorney that actually understand the CPS laws that they fail to follow. Okay? Okay, so CPS social workers fail to follow their own rules. You need an attorney to enforce those rules and implement those rules into the court. Am I right, Attorney Davis?
That is correct, Ms. G. All right,
Thank you
Ms. G,
so much.
we're over the time. I will be on tomorrow morning at the regular time, 6:30 a.m. for Pacific Standard Time for office hours. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe evening.
Thank you.
I recommended people that have a CPS case contact Vincent Davis. It's gonna help you a lot. Thank you.